Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to be sharing my review of the Secret Files of Section D for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition from Imaginarium Games. This is written by Alan Rowe, with artwork provided by Matt McGauley, Alan Rowe, and Scott Vaughn. This 240-page hardcover carries an MSRP of 40 pounds across the pond. I understand it is available here in the US. I just don't know what the MSRP is on it. I'm going to guess probably $40, $39.99. But of course, you can get the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. That's why I kind of have the impression that the MSRP in the US is $40. Although the reality is, check out imaginariumgames.com. Try to find out where you might be able to pick this up in the US, because I looked around online. I know it's supposed to be here in the US. I don't know where you could pick it up. Just telling you. All right, let's swing it over to the other camera, because here I've got the secret files of Section D. Few things to mention before we jump in. First of all, I received this as a review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the secret files of Section D, which from here on out, I am going to refer to simply as Section D. But I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find inside this book. All right, let's jump on in. First thing we'll do is take a peek at the credits page. Lots of folks worked very hard to bring this to life. So, Section D is mostly focused on pulp adventuring prior to the Second World War. So, we're talking about 1938. So, the world is on the brink of war as far as the core setting for Section D. Now, I should also mention that we have two other genres of adventuring that is included in this book. And we've got espionage as well as straight up military action. Strangely enough, the tones of those three sorts of genres are very, very different. So I'm kind of surprised that the approach to Section D is not simply, okay, we're doing pulp, or we're doing pre-Second World War espionage, or we're playing military adventures during World War II. So this kind of has an everything and the kitchen sink approach. It's kind of a shotgun approach. And I got to be honest, I don't think that does any favors for Section D. So we're going to start off with some changes to the setting rules, some additions to the setting rules for SWADE. Should also point out, you must have the core rule book in order to use this. This is not just a standalone core book. We do get our character creation. This kind of focuses a bit more towards the pulp side of things. That's kind of the default for Section D. We get some new hindrances, new edges, and we'll have some new archetypes as well. And all this is really nicely done. Should also point out that Section D isn't sort of an X-Files governmental organization. They're not out there investigating the supernatural or paranormal or anything like that. But they are an espionage group, and they are gathering information and intelligence, but they also tend to stumble across some really weird stuff. So that's how Section D operates. So we do have a different approach to our arcane backgrounds as opposed to the core book. You will have less powerful characters. So talking about pulpiness, so you'll have characters more along the lines of maybe the Shadow or even the Spider, as opposed to, say, a Doc Savage, who is just incredible at so many different things. Whereas The Shadow, yeah, okay, so he's rich like Bruce Wayne, and he has the power to cloud men's minds, but he's still a human being. And then the Spider is pretty much just a human being. So, kind of with a vendetta, sort of like a vigilante, kind of like the Punisher almost. So, speaking of comic books, you will see that a lot of the artwork throughout Section D feels like it's inspired by 1940s timely 1950s Atlas comic books. And I think that's kind of cool. I will say that the artwork throughout is a mixed bag. There are some images, especially later in the book, that feel like they're computer generated, that look kind of odd, don't seem to really fit in. So I do want to mention that. One section that is pretty extensive is the gear. So we got a lot of different equipment. And one of the things that I find to be kind of strange is, as an example here, we've got all these different weapons, all these different breakdowns of weapons. So if this is focused on being pulp action, do we really need to know the minutia about the various different weapons? I mean, the reality is a bar and an MP40 and a Sten gun all pretty much serve the same purpose. They're submachine guns. Yeah, I know the bar isn't technically a submachine gun, but they all serve the same purpose. So in a pulp role playing game, you don't really need to have the minutia that we find in the gear here. So the gear section feels like it's really more focused on the military genre than on the pulp genre. Like I said, I don't think that the shotgun approach really does any great service for Section D. I think this would have been a far better product if it was maybe half the page length and it was, hey, this is pulp adventure as the world is moving towards war, or this is more serious espionage adventuring prior to the Second World War, or even more serious would be military adventuring during the Second World War. But it's all three. And I think that's actually less advantageous than you might think. Something else that's a little odd about the way that Section D is presented is we will jump from genre to genre. So we might have a section that's all focused on pulpy, over the top, mustache twirling villains. And then suddenly you shift gears and we are in a far more serious espionage section or military section. There's a lot of good stuff in this book. Don't get me wrong. I really do like the sections that get into the various different espionage groups, both fictional and factual, of the combatants in World War II. I like that quite a bit. I also like the creation rules for pulp villains. I think really nicely done. I like the gears section. I just think that game masters and players would be better served if this was more sharply focused overall. But all in all, like I said, there's a lot of really good and interesting content in here. This just doesn't become your go-to source book for pulp adventures or your go-to source book for Cold War or pre-Cold War espionage or World War II role playing. It's just not laser focused as it could have been. There's some good information about the various different campaigns for the three different genres. I like that quite a lot also. We get sections about creating NPCs, not only your big bads, your, like I said, mustache twirling villains. We've got cults and secret societies. And then we'll get kind of a bestiary with aliens. So, Like I said, this just jumps around in genre and tone a little bit too much. But all in all, it's not terrible. It's an interesting read. I will definitely say that for sure. So that is a peek inside the secret files of Section D. Let's swing it over to the other camera. I'm going to share some final thoughts and give this a review score. I do like Section D. I think there's a lot of cool content inside. Once again, I think it would be far better if the author had decided, well, what genre do they want this book to be? Because it does jump all over the place. And the thing is, it's not as if, okay, so the first third of the book is pulp, then the next third is espionage, then the final third is military. No, it jumps all over the place. So the tone changes quite a lot as well. I don't think enough attention is actually provided to the changes in tone. You can't take the same approach for pulp adventuring as you would World War II role playing. It's completely different. You have to have a different level of seriousness, which I think isn't addressed as much as it probably should be in this book. All in all, I do like a lot of the content in here. I do recommend Section D. I just would recommend it far more if it had been focused on a particular genre and expanded out on that, as opposed to trying to be sort of all things to all people. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the Secret Files of Section D a 6 out of 10. Do recommend it. I do think it's good. I just wish it was far more focused on just a particular genre as opposed to just using a shotgun approach to pre-World War II role playing. All right, that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It will not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, a whole lot more you're not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.